Hello, welcome to my class, Fun with Maths. In today's class, we will be dealing with quadratic equation. So, let's get started. As you can see, here I have two equations. X square minus 16 equals to 0 and x square plus 3x plus 2 equals to 0. Here x is the variable. In both the equation you can see the highest power of the variable is 2. In this equation the highest power of the variable x is 2. In this equation the highest power is 2. So the equation in which the highest power of the variable is 2 is called quadratic equation. I have written down the definition here for you. You can copy it down if you want it. The equation in which the highest power of the variable is 2 is called quadratic equation. Okay, as you can see, the standard form of quadratic equation can be written in the form of ax square plus bx plus c. This form of equation is called standard form of quadratic equation. Here a, b and c are numbers that is known to us, where x is called variable and the highest power of x is 2. And this equation is taken as the standard form of quadratic equation. Let's go down here. As you can see, in place of a we have 2, in place of b we have 8, and in place of c we have 6. So a, b and c are called known numbers. Here again we have x square plus 10x plus 16 equals to 0. Now here in place of a we have 1 because the coefficient of x square is 1, and in place of b we have 10, in place of c we have 16. So this form of equation is called standard form of quadratic equation. And as I told you before, a, b and c are known numbers, x is a variable. Now let's see a. Here a is called quadratic coefficient. That means the coefficient of the variable with power 2 is called quadratic coefficient, and the coefficient of the variable x with the power 1 is called linear coefficient. C is the constant number. C is the constant number. Okay, now here we have 2. 2 is the quadratic coefficient. 8 is the linear coefficient because at 8 is the coefficient of the variable with power 1. 2 is called quadratic coefficient because it is the coefficient of the variable with power 2. So, can you tell me what is the quadratic coefficient in this equation? In this equation? Yes, good. 1. 1 is the quadratic coefficient because 1 is the coefficient of the variable with power 2. And the linear coefficient is 10, as it is the coefficient of variable with power 1. And 16 is called the constant number or the constant term. As you can see, I have written down here, a is called quadratic coefficient, b is called linear coefficient, c is called constant number. Okay, there are three main ways of solving a quadratic equation. and they are factorization, which you have done in the lower classes 7, 8, and another is completing the square method, and number 3 is using the formula. So quadratic equation can be solved by 3 means, or by 3 ways, or by 3 process, that is called factorization. Number 2, completing the square method and using the formula. And in today's class we will learn to solve the. So now let us solve the equation using the completing the square method. So we take a simple equation for better understanding of the process. We have here x squared plus 4x plus 4. It is in the quadratic form. So now we need to solve it. To solve it, what we have to do is we'll copy down this equation, and then we'll try to remove the constant term. The constant term is plus 4. So we will remove it from this side. Then it becomes now the trick lies here. What we need to do is just write whatever the sign is here. You always write down whatever the sign may be here. It could be positive, it could be negative, but here the sign will always remain positive. And take the half of the linear coefficient. You see, the linear coefficient is 4. And what is half of 4? It is 2. And write down the square of 2. And now what you can do is, when you write down 2 square here, so to balance the equation, we need to write 2 square on the other side also. So now the equation is balanced. Now it's in the form of a square plus 2ab plus b square. So you can write it in this form: x plus 2 whole square, and you get minus 4 plus 4. You get this, and then we get x plus 2 equals to 0 and x equals to minus 2. So this is here we have another equation which is in quadratic form. It's a quadratic equation. As you can see, the highest power of the variable is 2. Now we will solve it in the same way as we did the earlier one. So let's see. We have x square minus 2 root 3x, and then we need to remove the constant terms. So when we remove the constant terms, the equation becomes like this. Now in another step, as I told you, we need to put the sign of addition. Always the sign of addition, no matter what sign is here. Here the sign will always be plus. And then take the half of the linear coefficient. The half of the linear coefficient is the linear coefficient is 2 root 3, and half is divided by 2, we get root 3. So it will be root 3 whole, and then square it, and then add it. So to balance the equation, again we need to add the same thing on the other side. So what we get is, now we can write this equation. It's in the form of a square minus 2ab plus b square. So we can write x minus root 3 whole square. And it can be written as So this is how we solve the equation. Here we have another equation, and we will solve it in the same way we did the earlier one. So what we do is we take x square minus 15x and remove 14 from this side, and the equation becomes minus 14. And third step is to change it into a complete square. So, and we take the half of 15, and the half, we write down here the plus sign and then take the half of the linear coefficient, that is the half of 15. Half of 15 is 15 divided by 2, and then square it. And we need to add the same thing on the other side to keep the equation balanced. Now we have because it is in the form of a square minus 2ab plus b square form, so we can write it in this form. And this side you need to solve it. Oh, I made a mistake here. It's just x minus 15 upon 2. And you multiply this and this and you get minus 56. And then here we have 1 in the denominator, so we multiply 1 with 225 and we get 225. And then we multiply 1 times 4 is 4. I hope you know how to solve this. So now it's 169 upon 4. Now you need to remove this 2, the power, so we'll square it. You have to find the square root of this. It becomes 13 upon 2. Plus minus, when you remove the sign, you have to write plus and minus sign before it. Now we'll solve this equation taking the plus sign, positive sign. We have x minus 15 upon 2 equals, so we'll just take the positive sign, that is plus sign, plus 13 upon 2, then x equals to plus 13 upon 2 minus, when this is taken to the other side, it becomes 15 upon 2. LCM is 2. When you add 13 plus 15 will give you 28, and then when you divide 28 by 2 you get 14. So x equals to 14. Now again we have to take the negative sign. Taking negative sign, we get x minus 15 upon 2 equals to minus 13 upon 2. So when you take this to the other side, the minus sign changes into positive sign, that is plus 15 upon 2, and then 2 minus 13 plus 15 is 2, and then x equals to 1. So we have two values for x, therefore we get x equals to 14 and 1. This is how we solve the equation, and there's one more left, and that will be my last equation for today. Okay, here we have another equation, and this is the last equation we are going to solve today. This is 6x squared minus 7x plus 2. So as usual we did the same thing, we removed the constant term to the other side, and then now we have here the coefficient of x squared, so we need to remove it. So to remove this coefficient, we have to divide it by 6. Not only this, but all the terms in this equation we divide by 6. And when we divide by 6, we get x squared minus 7 divided by 6x equals to minus 2 divided by 6. So we divided all the terms by 6 to remove this equation. And now we have this. As I told you before, we need to use here the positive sign, and then half of 7 upon 6. Half of 7 upon 6 is divided by 2. So when you divide it by 2, it's like, so it becomes like 6 2 times 12. So it's like 7 upon 12 and taking the square of it. So we need to add the same thing on the other side to make the equation balanced. So now this can be written as x minus 7 upon 12 whole square minus 2 upon 6 plus, when you open the bracket, what you get is so you can cancel this, it becomes now when you solve this, you multiply 144 into 1, it becomes 144, and 3 times 49, you get 9 times 7, 147, and then we multiply this 3 times 144. It's a very big number, so I'll just write down in the factor form. So now what we get is, when we solve this, we get 3 upon 3 into 144 upon 12 whole square. So now this 3 and this 3 are cancelled. I have 1 upon 144. X minus 7 upon 12 whole square equals 2. So now I need to remove this square. So what I do is I take the square root of it. So it becomes x minus 7 upon 12 equals to 1 upon 12 plus minus 1 upon 12. We had x minus 7 upon 12. 7 upon 12 equals to plus minus 1 upon 12. Now taking the positive sign, we have x minus 7 upon 12 equals to 1 upon 12. It's a positive sign.